Today, Tom raised in a home where alcoholism was all around him. He doesn't touch it, but how was that like being raised in that house? Today, live.
Restoring hope, open my heart to sing, taking the darkness inside, revealing your light, restoring hope, open my eyes to see the world through different eyes, revealing your light, restoring hope.
It's a Sunday, and thanks for joining us on this RestoringHopeLive.com. We appreciate you being here. We know you have lots of other choices on the American Family Radio Network and others, but for some reason, the good Lord has led you here at this time to hear what we have to share. Lila Stafford is in the house. She's a substance abuse counselor. Is that the right term?
Yes.
Substance abuse counselor with Powell CDC. Chris is producing for us today. Bob Montserrat, the Cat in the Hat, has some time off this week. And I want to introduce you to my special guest, Tom Urban. Later, we're going to talk about one of Tom's passions, and that is to witness the gospel to people who are unchurched or unbelievers.
That's right.
Is that a good way of putting that?
That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, and how I know Tom is he took my 14 and 16-year-old grandsons, along with a bunch of other people, on a mission trip this last summer to witness to some people who were not Christians. They were of another, well, no, I don't want to say another denomination. They were of a cult, some people would say. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit later because I find that fascinating. But first, in getting to know Tom, I realized that he had been surrounded by alcohol and addiction and things like that his whole entire life. In fact, you were raised with an alcoholic mother.
That's correct. Yeah.
Now, she's sober now.
She is.
8 years, you said.
Yeah, 8 years.
8 years. And she did it on her own.
She did.
What made her quit?
My mom is a very strong lady. She recognized her addiction, and similar to what she did when she quit smoking, she went cold turkey. She actually went and admitted herself into an outpatient program.
Wow. And then she was done.
She was done.
Does she attend any 12-step programs or anything like that?
She attends AA continuously.
Really?
Absolutely. She still does.
Here in town or someplace else?
Yeah, here in central Iowa.
Wow. I wonder if I've met her.
You may have.
At a meeting. Well, we won't disclose her on the radio. Well, so as she went to an outpatient program, did she go to Powell?
I don't know which one she went to.
What other outpatient programs are there 8 years ago?
There are lots.
Were there lots back then?
Yeah.
Okay. I only knew of Powell.
No.
That's where they sent me twice. Every time I'd get picked up for a DUI, the judge would require you to go through an outpatient program. And it never stuck. I just went there and went through the motions, and so I could get the judge off my back, you know?
You know, I found it interesting what you said. You said your mother did it by herself, and then you said she went to treatment, and then she's in a 12-step program. That isn't by herself.
No, she started the process by herself, but she relies upon others. She really thrives in an environment where others are going through the same difficulties that she does, and without question, those support systems are an important part of her life. Absolutely. The initial process start was on her own.
Yes.
But beyond that, she relies upon family, friends, and obviously sponsors and others in the program.
We have a saying at Powell that recovery means that you're replacing an addiction with a healthy relationship on other people.
Absolutely.
Say that again.
You're substituting your addiction for a healthy relationship with other people.
Oh, when you get sober.
Yeah, your recovery.
Yeah.
That's what your recovery looks like.
Yeah, that's true.
But I'll tell you, that's hard for a lot of people. A lot of people think once they go to treatment, it's like, okay, I'm better now. I don't need anyone. And they go back to isolating, being by themselves, and then they come through the doors again.
Yeah, my dad would say to me, I'd call my dad. They live out in Connecticut, and I'd call my dad. Well, what you up to? He'd say, and I said, well, I'm just coming to a meeting or going coming from a meeting or going to, you still have to go to those, he'd say. I'd say, Dad, don't you go to church every Sunday? Well, yeah, but that's different. No, not really.
I think where my mother got to is she didn't have to go, and that's the word she wouldn't say she had to go to anything. She wanted to, and she wanted to build like you said, she wanted to build that relationship back. She had lost a lot of friends, she had lost family, and during her recovery time, that what you were saying about building relationships back with family is very important.
But your dad stayed with her all that time.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
Not when you love someone. You're supportive no matter what they are going through.
Yeah, a true love, an agape love is that way.
Correct.
Christ-centered love, but so many times that's not really, because we've seen relationship after relationship after relationship fall apart because of alcohol.
Many times when somebody is getting better and they're in recovery, the other person then doesn't have a role, because if they took care of that person before, then they don't feel like they're worthy anymore, and it sounds mixed up. It sounds like I can't believe someone would do that, but they do more often than not.
I actually think my dad took upon a role as a sponsor alongside my mom. And I think that relationship grew stronger, not only in their marriage, but as a friendship as they both worked through together. I think my dad, watching what my mom was and where she wanted to go and become, solidified their friendship outside of even just the marriage.
That's cool. So he sounds like he's pretty healthy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You love your dad, don't you?
Without question, he was my best man at my wedding.
Yeah, you can just tell that. You can tell that. And you love your mom too. I'm not saying that, but so when did you as a child realize that something was off base with mom? You didn't you maybe knew it was alcohol, probably not. But you just knew that there was something goofy here.
I think throughout my whole life, there was always that knowledge that there was obsessive compulsive disorder running through my family, whether it be my mom, some relatives, close relatives, or siblings. There was always that air within the family.
And obsessive
compulsive
disorders, OCD.
That's correct.
Now, when I think of OCD, I think of everything's got to be in its place. Everything has a place, and it's got to be in its place, and everything's clean. Everything's exactly the way it is. The pencil's turned just the right way. The hair clip is in just right. The clothing's just right. Am I correct?
I think OCD takes on a lot of different forms, and I think that you'd probably be better to talk through that.
You're right. It is that, but it also can be that the thoughts that you're thinking are going around and around and around in your head. So if you're off on the wrong track thinking about alcohol, that may be all you could think about.
So the feces committee.
Yeah.
In your head.
Yeah. But it also means there's a certain part of your brain that's working on overload too. So you have to, a lot of times it needs to be medicated, or you have to find ways to slow that part of your brain down. But there are a lot of people that have addictions that have OCD, or, there are a lot of different categories of things that come along with having addictions. That's one of them.
Okay, you know me pretty well. Do I have OCD?
No.
Okay. Because I often wonder, because, this arena, this cockpit that I sit in, it's got to be exact. I got to have a writing instrument in my hand. I've always got my book right here, which has the name and stuff in. There's my phone within a distance.
That's just habit. And all of us, in fact, I was talking to a guest that we had at the lake this weekend, and he has OCD. And it's on a continuum. So everyone has a little bit of it, but the extent to which you have it and it becomes a problem is when you know.
What's the opposite of OCD?
Being a slob and not caring about anything, I guess.
Okay, that's it. Just
I think that my definition of obsessive compulsive or OCD would be when those idiosyncrasies become an unhealthy level, when they start to actually drive your life, when they start to change who you are, what you do, how you think. That's where I think it crosses the line.
You can't get to your goals because you're constantly the obsessive part is taking over.
All right, so talk to me like I'm a 6-year-old. I find this interesting. What does an OCD alcoholic look like?
Well, they are. It's like two components. I mean, you have the alcoholism that is driving you to drink, and usually the drinking, you're wanting to drink because you need to soothe yourself. You need to quiet down. You need to stop this that's going on because the other part's driving you crazy.
Right.
You're aware that it's driving you crazy. It's like, I've got to keep going back and checking to make sure the water's off. I've got to check to make sure. This guest we had this weekend and I were both laughing. I said I was glad he was there because he could go around the house and check to make sure none of us left anything. Mm-hmm. Because I'm usually the one that goes and does that in a couple times, and I get out in the car and it's like, oh God, I got to make sure go back in and make sure that we did it.
This is on, this is off, this is closed, this is open.
Yeah.
Lila Stafford is my co-host on Restoring Hope Live. Chris is producing. I'm J. Michael McCoy. If I haven't told you lately, thanks for listening. I love this job, and I couldn't do it without you. My guest today is Tom Urban, and Tom is an amazing Christ-centered guy who is passionate about witnessing the gospel. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the program. But as I've gotten to know Tom, I've also discovered that you were raised in a family that had OCD, alcoholism. Is there anybody besides your mother that lended to themselves to the bottle?
On my mother's side, there was numerous aunts, uncles, and other relatives that dealt with alcoholism, and to a point where my grandmother almost died and was told that if she drank one more time that she would die.
Yeah.
That unfortunately didn't stop her.
And she died.
No, she still
alive?
We had to put her in a home to monitor that.
Really? Mm-hmm. So she's not able to drink in the home.
That's right.
What kind of home?
Well, she's in a local care facility here in central Iowa, but we monitor what goes in and out for her. She has her own room. She's independent. She does deal with Alzheimer's, so she is monitored. And with that monitoring, we also monitor, like I said, what she has access to.
So she can't get into a car and drive?
No.
And she doesn't have a friend who brings her some stash?
No.
So this isn't a home for alcoholism?
No, this isn't alcoholism. This
like
is
for
just,
older age or Alzheimer's or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this was this decision to put her in that facility was sped by her use of alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that would be your mother's mother?
That's correct.
Nothing on your dad's side?
Nothing on my dad's side.
What attracted your father to your mother?
Well, when I say my dad, he's actually my stepfather.
Okay.
It was, I don't know the whole story of how they met. They met through mutual friends. It was a God thing that brought them together back in 1980.
Okay.
My biological father was not really a part of my life beyond that.
Okay, beyond your birth?
Well, beyond 9 years old.
9 years old. Okay. You don't have any contact with him now?
Very little. Very little. I see him periodically, but again, birthdays and holidays, I may call him, or he may call me. But when I speak about my father, my dad, it is my stepdad. For all practical purposes, he is my dad. I call him dad. As I said, he was my best man.
I'd love to hear that. I heard you say earlier that he's your best friend and he was in your wedding.
When I got married to my wife, I could think of no other person that would be closer to me as a friend than my dad, my stepdad. So he was my best man.
No, he's your dad.
He is.
You have a father.
Right.
But he's your dad.
And he's also my best friend.
All right, we're going to take a break. Tom Urban is our guest. We'll continue to talk about how his family dealt with his mother's alcoholism and how she finally got help here live on RestoringHopeLive.com.
I'm a step parent, and
Trouble now! Save us! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
Yes, now your favorite programs on Webcast One Live can all be watched and listened to on any Android or Apple device, your phone, tablet, or iPad. Yes, your favorite shows on Webcast One Live are available live or on podcast wherever you go. Let me introduce to you some of our great shows.
Shalom! Every week on Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman, we'll talk about issues in the Middle East, issues related to the Jewish tradition and religious traditions in general, and keep you up to date on exactly what's going on around the world. You may know some of the story, but you haven't heard all of the story until you've heard it on Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman and our special guests we have on every week.
Hey, this is Doc with Doc and Lefty. I want to tell you about our brand new time slot. It's from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. It's on the same night, Tuesdays. We now follow Ed Fallon and the Fallon Forum on webcast1live.com. I want to tell you a little bit about our show. Our show is focused on local, state, and national, and sometimes international politics. We like to keep people updated and informed. We also have very interesting guests. So please join us every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. on webcast1live.com.
So when you want to watch your favorite Webcast One program, remember, there's an app for that. You know, there's an app for that.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey, what's wrong? Logan wants Let's Rock Elmo for his birthday, but since Steve lost his job, I don't think we can afford it. What did you do for money last year when you and John were struggling to make ends meet? My secret? I went to Me and Mommy to Be. We sold all of Megan and Ryan's clothes and toys there. They give back the highest percentage on their items in the area, and it was so easy. Megan's clothes? She's 15. Yes, they can sign newborn through trendy teens. We're not struggling now, but I'm going to keep saving and making money at Me and Mommy to Be.
We are back on Restoring Hope Live on this gorgeous day, sponsored by the good folks at Unity Point Health. Locally, it's Powell CDC, Powell Chemical Dependency Clinic. And the number at Powell is
515-263-2424.
And you can call there anytime and talk to one of their specialized trained counselors, or you can just talk to Lila. Ask for Lila. She'd be glad to talk to you. And Powell is the place that you need to know about Powell, because whether you like it or not, somebody you know in your life suffers from alcoholism. Used to be 1 out of 10. Now the number's getting closer to 2 out of 10. And part of that's because it's become, well, you don't wear the scarlet letter so much anymore if you are a member of a 12-step program. If you come forward and admit that you have an addiction problem, you have a living life on life's terms problem, there are people like Powell who are set up and prepared to help you and to get you started and to walk you through a 12-step program so you can live the life that you had intended to live, that you were meant to live, a life that is filled with relationships that are healthy and good and strong. That's what Powell can do for you and your family, and we hope that when the time is necessary, that you'll know Powell is there. So just stick that name in the back of your head, stick Lila's name in the back of your head, and just remember, Lila at Powell. So when you hear somebody's got a problem and they need help, you know Lila at Powell. Now, Lila, that means you can't retire for years.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm not going to anyway.
Now, you're about to be a grandmother for the first time.
Yeah.
When's that going to happen?
Another month.
Another month.
Yeah.
Are you nesting?
My daughter is nesting for me. She keeps bringing all this stuff to our house because I'm going to babysit a couple days a week.
Okay.
And she keeps bringing stuff over for this baby. So now our house looks like a nursery.
Does the baby have its own room in your house?
Well, there'll be 3 rooms that she can choose from.
I see. All right. Our special guest today is Tom Urban, and we're discussing what it was like to be raised in a house that had alcoholism as well as OCD. Now, you have a younger sister.
I do.
And did she get attached to the alcoholism?
She wasn't into alcoholism, no. She had a different type of disorder. She struggled with anorexia, bulimia through high school and early college.
And she's over that now?
Absolutely. She's healthy and has 4 wonderful kids. So she's really turned the corner.
Good. And why do you think it had, did it have any impact on you?
Absolutely. In fact, it still does. When I hear of young people discussing eating disorders, I think it's a devastating thing for a family. Watching my sister and being taken away from some of the activities that she was involved in high school. She was put inpatient in a facility here in Des Moines for a while because she was at a point in her disease where it was just physically deteriorating. She was going to either get help or die.
Wow. And so she chose to get help. Or was it the choice made for her?
The choice was made for her at that time.
Okay, but obviously the right choice.
Absolutely.
Lila, you suffer from food addictions. Help me understand that. Is it just the same as alcohol addiction or drug addiction, or it is? So there's something inside your body. Well, I call it the God hole. So we have a hole that we're trying to fill something, a void, and so somebody will either fill it with food, or the opposite is not fill it with food.
Right. But it's the same thing. It's it all has, the food part has to do with control. Like if I've got to have something in my life that I control.
And so the consumption of food is what you would control.
Yeah. Or not, and then they get high on not eating. That's their high.
On not eating.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a certain sensation that you get, and then it's a powerful feeling.
I call it a headache. I call it pains in my stomach. That's what I get when I don't eat.
I am reading the best book right now, and I think it's called Fat in the Family, something like that. And it is really good. And the lady who wrote it, I can't think of her name right now, but the lady who wrote it is also an addiction counselor. So I totally understand this whole book because she's talking in the same terms that I talk to my patients every day, and it's almost identical.
So when you're treating somebody with bulimia, you're really treating a control issue, not a food issue.
Yes. Yes.
Because when we're treating someone with alcoholism,
that's just the symptom. The symptom is alcohol. The symptom is food. The real problem lies below that. And so that's what in fact, I'm doing a big talk on that tomorrow. And it's, when people come into treatment, they think the problem is the alcohol. And we just have to get rid of that so we can get to the real problem.
All right. And what's the real problem of alcohol? It's not control, or is it control?
It could be.
Could be.
But it's the hole you're talking about.
Yeah.
With it. It can be a lot of different things. I have a game that I play with the patients, and they choose. I throw all this stuff on the floor, their little holes and hearts, and they look at the names on it, and they choose why they drank or why they used. And then they tell that. I put all of that into this bag, and I said, okay, this is the baggage we carry with us every day. And in order to deal with that baggage, we used pills, we smoked dope, and I put all this, I put all these fake like dope and alcohol into a bag. And I said, this is how we coped with all these problems. You came here to treatment. We told you couldn't have that anymore. So I take the pills out and I take the alcohol out of there. And I said, now look what you're left with. You still have the problem. Now we have to deal with the problem. But they can see it and it makes sense to them.
Is the problem with food addictions always control?
Well, when you go to the extremes, of bulimia and anorexia. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it is. Well, what this author was saying too is that we it's the same thing with alcoholics. When you start feeling uncomfortable, it's like you want to solve it right now.
Right.
So nobody with these addictions is used to sitting in pain very long. And they don't like pain. So it's like, give me something so I don't feel pain. I see that all the time in treatment. People are scared to death of pain. Now I can see that, but when you start talking about food, because I have that issue too, it's hard to swallow. I mean, well, it's not hard for me to swallow food, but it's hard to accept that I don't like pain, but it's true because as soon as I start feeling any part of me that starts feeling uneasy about something, I just want to start sticking food in my mouth.
Keep in mind, I think it's more, and I go along with the pain aspect. It may be a physical pain in some aspects, but I think it's a mental pain. I mean, I know my psychological pain
Absolutely.
as well. So we can't divorce the fact that these patients that are anorexic, bulimic, it may be controlled, but it really is a pain. The pain still is there. It may be psychological, not physical. So they're feeding that psychological pain that they deal with.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. So it's a pain that we try to fill. It's a pain that we try to get rid of with alcohol, drugs, food.
And I want to be soothed, and I want to be soothed right now. I don't want this prolonged. I want to feel good right now.
Yeah, immediate gratification.
Absolutely.
And then the guilt will drive the next episode.
I just went through all that this weekend. Just totally overate the whole weekend. The guilt, the shame, all that, and then.
Really?
Yeah. So I haven't eaten yesterday. Just trying to get over that.
I get guilt and shame. The same level of guilt and shame if you had drunk alcohol?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. Yes.
Well,
for me, it's
stop
even
that.
worse. Yeah.
Don't do that. We love you. It's all right.
Well, there's also you see your body different. When people would say to me, "Oh, you're not fat,"
Right.
all I see is from my waist to my knees, and it's like
your waist to your knees.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when someone says you're not fat, it's like I only see that part, and it's like, yeah, I am.
Keep in mind that food can blind food, alcohol can blind you to reality too. Lila is not a fat person.
No, not
but
at all.
in her mind's
tall
eye,
and thin.
Psychologically, she doesn't see herself as we see her.
Okay.
She sees herself as somebody that is in need, and she tries to feed that.
Yeah.
My sister was the same way. My mom was the same way. My grandma was the same way.
All right, folks, grab your headphones. We've got a caller. We're going to go to the phones. Frank, you're live on RestoringHopeLive.com. How you doing, Frank?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. So
I've got a question for Lila. When I was about 14, 15 years old, started playing around, experimenting with marijuana, I kind of discovered that I had some OCD. And it seemed as if the marijuana amplified that effect, amplified what was going on. And later on in my life, it seemed like alcohol kind of subdued it a little. And OCD can be anything from checking, counting, being worried about other people stepping on broken glass and just going back again and again and again and again to pick up broken glass, washing your hands too much, etc. But what is the difference between why alcohol seemed to subdue it and marijuana tended to amplify it?
So if you smoked marijuana, you got the OCD was more prevalent.
Yes.
And if you drank alcohol, it was less prevalent.
Yes.
I think marijuana does that anyway. It makes you feel more alert in some areas. So I've heard.
I'll give you an example. When I was a young man, I made the mistake of smoking some marijuana in my home, and I did not want my parents to discover the smell. So I went in the bathroom and I started spraying a bathroom deodorizer until the can was empty. And I set the can down on the corner of the bathtub, And I went in and I sat down, and my mind wouldn't stop about that smell. And I had to go in, and I picked the can up and sprayed it till it was empty again. Now, I know marijuana has mild hallucinogens in it, so I can't tell you where the can kept being empty, but I repeated this process about 15 times, and my mind wouldn't let me get off of it. I had to keep going back and getting rid of that smell. Because
I think that's more about guilt and shame than it is OCD. Yeah. Are you OCD in other areas?
Yeah, I can tend to be a little overly clean. I know that I've counted in my life and I've checked in my life. I know particularly one night when I was high, what started this checking for me. One night when I was high, I always checked the locks at night before I went to bed. And I pulled on the front door one night, and the door popped open, and it was locked. So ever since that point, for many years, I would shake that door, and it had to be a certain number of times, whether it was 3 times, 5 times, whatever number I had in my mind that would satisfy me that I had checked it enough times, I could walk away from it and let it go. But I also know people who can stand and try to straighten a picture frame for hours, the same picture frame, mess with a doily for hours upon end. All their canned goods or all their products in the refrigerator all have to be faced. And faced, if you know in the grocery business, you know what that means. Just facing your product. And it's behaviors like that. But these behaviors that I discovered that I had at an early age were amplified every time I would mess around with marijuana. And
Frank, I need you to hold that right there. We've got a break. We're coming back. This is Restoring Hope Live, brought to you by the good folks at Powell CDC.
This is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the Home Comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I'm administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's your home.
It's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me. But is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did is perfect. It was great.
Keep going though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
Enough said.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back. This is RestoringHopeLive.com, brought to you by the good folks at Powell CDC, a part of Unity Point Health. If you have a Unity Point Health, you have a Unity Point Health facility in your community across America. If you know anybody that works there, thank them for sponsoring this program that's heard each week on the American Family Radio Network, and we thank you for taking the time to listen. You can always go to RestoringHopeLive.com and go to our website there, and our archives and all the shows that we've done are right there, and you can download them, you can send them to friends. Today's show would be a good show to send to somebody in their family suffers from alcoholism or OCD. I will tell you, as tempting as it is, you want to send this to someone who suffers from OCD or suffers from alcoholism. Usually that's not a hint well taken. This show is really produced for you. You're the supporter. You're the person who loves the alcoholic or loves the person with OCD. Perhaps you're the enabler. That's okay. That happens. That kind of comes with love. And so what we try to do on this program is steer you in directions and help you understand what's going on. And we've got Frank on the phone here, and Frank was really doing a good job about talking about his OCD. And Frank, do you think it's gotten better over the years, or has it gotten worse?
Well, in some ways it's gotten better. Christ has subdued a lot of it. I can still brush my teeth, and I know that I will brush them a certain number of times on each side. I mean, I'm not going to brush my teeth, for example, 5 times on one side, 5 strokes on one side and 3 on the other. It'll be an even number of strokes. But things like grabbing the door handle and shaking that repeatedly, those type things have gone away. I still tend to deal a little bit with, I don't like filth. But it all ties into a certain, I find it all ties in a little bit to perfectionism. And that's something that ran through my family a little bit, was perfectionism. And I've had to come to Christ and figure out that it's hard to be perfect in a world of imperfection. And it's been a long, slow, hard lesson to learn. But Christ has subdued a lot of this in my life, but I still have tendencies to do certain things.
Well, and I think it's important to recognize that OCD comes from the fear of not being in control. Is that fair to say, Lila?
I think it's more of a, I don't know. I'm going to be real honest. I don't know, but it's something that's physically wrong that's not working in your brain.
So it's chemical imbalance.
Yeah, and it's working on overload.
Okay. The other thing that I have learned in my life, Tom, what would you say the definition of a perfectionist is?
Someone who always is trying to do better than they can.
Okay.
Always trying to go beyond their abilities, trying to do better than whether they themselves or someone else.
And let me add to that. Everybody thinks a perfectionist is somebody who gets it done and they think it's perfect and they protect that. A perfection is the opposite of that. It never gets done because it's never done right and it's never done good enough.
I've got another thought on the perfectionism as far as I'm personally, my feelings about it. A lot of times I feel like I have to overcompensate for the other people who don't do enough. It's like some people are such slobs in life that it kind of puts the pressure on the person who is a perfectionist that they got to pick up for the people who aren't doing what they should be doing.
Let me ask you, what would you be if you weren't perfect?
Well, I know I'm not. That's obviously what Christ and I deal with on a daily basis is I'm not perfect. Mm-hmm. But I have to constantly seek Him to try to tamp down these feelings of wanting to overcompensate for. It's a control thing. There's issues of control in it. Manipulation, obviously, there's issues of that too. But I just find that for myself personally, I feel like I got to do extra above and beyond what I should do because I see so many people that won't, in my eyes, do what they ought to be doing.
And how does that work in relationships, Frank?
Well,
I mean, you and I have a friendship. We work on the radio an hour together every week. You don't treat me like that.
no, I don't. But in personal relationships where I'm in an intimate relationship, you know, I got to separate friendships from intimate relationships because in intimacy there's certain rules and certain guidelines that I don't think apply in brotherly friendships. It's a different arena when you're in something that's a little more of an intimate level. And sometimes I demand a little bit more of people who I'm in an intimate level with because I feel I've laid it all out on the line for them. They know me. I've laid things out. I've opened myself up to them. And when, in a way that you're not doing in a friendship love or a brotherly love, and the betrayals can hurt just a little bit more. They can sting just a little bit more intense. When somebody that you've laid it all out for turns their back on you, betrays you in some fashion. You know, I don't expect...
But does that mean that they just aren't doing something your way? Because it doesn't sound from the way you're talking that you're honoring their spirit.
Well, I don't know. I don't know that I truly understand the blunt of that question, but I'll just answer it in this way, just to try to emphasize again that when you're in an intimate relationship and they see your flaws, they see, you know, when somebody says to you, give me a penny for your thoughts, and as a man, when you start laying yourself open for a woman, knowing that eventually that woman could take advantage, because we don't lay ourselves totally open to other men because we know men will take advantage of a weakness. But when in a vulnerable time, when you lay your head, yourself open in a pillow talk style relationship where you start opening up and you know that you're trusting that person and you know that person can turn and use that stuff viciously against you.
Then you've got the wrong friend.
Well, yes, but that can sting and be a betrayal that is just unlike any other betrayal that human beings can get involved in my opinion.
Well, Frank, you've brought up a few times your relationship with Jesus. I want to ask you, are you in an intimate relationship with Him?
Yes.
You've laid it all out to Him.
Yes.
So in doing so, you realize that it's His will that will be done in your life. You don't have control over that. The more you understand that there is a creator, Jesus is your intimate friend, I think that you'll understand that not everyone will betray you because He will not.
Well, it's a constant, my battle is, and I try to talk to other people about this, and some don't agree with me, but I believe there's a free will. And my biggest battle, and I think human beings' biggest battle, is relinquishing this will daily, because it's a daily battle. You relinquish it today, you get up tomorrow and you think, hey, everything's okay, I relinquished it yesterday. No, it's right back again, and you have to die to self daily, relinquish your will daily to the Lord. And I've got to keep reminding myself of that on a constant daily basis.
Frank, that's called being human. That's just the way we are. We are made that way by nature. That's the way we are. None of us like to have our will taken away from us, so to speak, or feel that we are not in control of our daily lives. But I want to emphasize to you that if you are in a true intimate relationship with Christ, and you, whether you're pillow talk with your wife or you pray to Jesus, you have to keep in mind, He's not going to turn His back on you. He's not going to use what you say against you. He's going to be there for you. Your perfection is based solely in Him, so you don't have to continue to strive for perfection. It's already there through Jesus.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. I'm talking, when I was referencing earlier, I'm talking more of an earthly perfection as opposed to a spiritual perfection. I know I'm spiritually perfect in God's eyes, but I kind of battle with the daily earthly perfections. That we strive to have things a certain, organization. That's another OCD characteristic.
Frank, we're up against a hard break. We're going to let you know, let you go. Thank you very much for calling
welcome.
RestoringHopeLive.com.
You're welcome.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit, you're our hero!
Metro Ford's on everywhere. Metro Ford's on everywhere.
See 'em here, see 'em there. You got bad credit? We don't care.
Metro Ford's on everywhere. Metro Ford's on everywhere.
Visit emetroford.com for your guaranteed credit approval. Good credit, bad credit, no credit. Everybody drives with guaranteed credit approval at emetroford.com.
Metro Ford's on everywhere.
Visit emetroford.com today.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
Welcome back to RestoringHopeLive.com, brought to you by the good folks at Powell CDC. You know, I think today has been a very interesting program for me, at least, because I learned something. I always learn something, but I learned today how OCD can play into other illnesses, other disorders. I also learned, and did not know this, that it's a biological issue.
Mm-hmm.
It can be treated with medication.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Now, do you still have some OCD tendencies?
I do. I know I do. I recognize it in myself, and being aware of it, I think, is my first step to combating it. I watch myself very carefully. I've seen what it's done in my family. I know that I would have the tendency to go down that path, and I have to kind of like what Frank said. Every day, I make sure. You know, I need to center myself. I need to get in the Word, and I need to make sure that I'm where I need to be.
Now, Lila, when somebody comes in to Powell and they're going to get help for drug abuse or for alcohol abuse, do you look for things like OCD up front that you know you also need to work with? Or maybe I should just say they're just there. They're obvious.
They're obvious. So it's just recognizing there's so many things that are usually coupled with alcoholism. So we identify those, and then they get help with those as well.
They get help with those as well.
They get help in mental health.
Okay. Now, we started talking about alcoholism and everything in your family. You never suffered from it. Do you think that's because you saw the harm that it did in your life?
I think it's absolutely the case. I can't say that I haven't drank, but I watching what it did to my family, I know where my limits are. That goes back to I recognize the OCD or the alcoholism component in myself, and I not in my own power do I stop myself. I lean upon my spirituality, my faith, but it's also a recognition that, yeah, it's there, and I know it is, and I need to stop myself.
Now, there would be some people that would have the school of thought that if you can have one or two or three, and stop, then you're not an alcoholic.
I think they're fooling themselves.
Okay. Lila and I have talked about this before, and I don't think there will ever be an answer to this question. How do I know if I'm an alcoholic? I mean, I get asked that now that I'm, 4 years plus sober. How'd you know you're an alcoholic? One of the ways I describe it, and this is the way it was for me, sitting around a table, 4 or 5 people, and you're having drinks. And all of a sudden, this person over here takes a drink or finishes a drink and goes, oh, wow. Okay, wow, dude, I feel that. All right, I'm done. Somebody get me water or coffee or we're got to go. For me, when I got that feeling, it was Katie, bar the door. Pedal to the metal, bring them in the buckets. For me, that's how my alcoholism manifested itself, because I didn't start drinking till I was 34. And if I would have a drink, it would be a little gin and tonic or something, and not even finish the drink. But then in 94, I got a big hole in me, and I decided to fill it with alcohol. And for me, it was when I got that feeling, boom, there we go. So if you have 1 or 2 or 3 drinks and you get that feeling, is it your spirituality that says stop, but your flesh says go?
I think it more has to do with my responsibility.
Okay.
Responsibility to myself, responsibility with my family, to my occupation, to...
That's just a normal person talking, though.
Yeah. This is a
Again,
normie.
Alcoholics don't think
People
that way.
ask me, I mean, they'll say, what does an alcoholic look like? Well, it looks like you and I.
Yeah.
They don't look any different from the outside. So when you say, how do you know if somebody's an alcoholic? You don't just by looking at them.
Right.
Now, spend time with them in an intimate relationship, you see that. But it's my responsibility. And again, as somebody who doesn't deal with or work with alcoholism in myself, but I'm more attuned to seeing it in others because I've dealt with it.
Yeah. Now, in your church, would someone be likely to come to you if they saw someone having a problem, or are there other people that take care of that?
As an elder of the church, we ask all members if they have a concern or an issue to bring them to us, but not necessarily just myself. We have really gifted individuals in our church that do counseling, that are familiar with, for example, Powell CDC. They will recommend certain programs. Not necessarily, they can come to me for advice, but not necessarily for direct counseling. That's just not in my purview. I'd rather have a professional handle that.
Yeah, I mean, it's so weird. I've been sober a little over 4 years, and I now have been called on by members of our clergy several times when they have found a member or someone who's attending our church having alcohol issues. Now, that's just bizarre because I know the sobriety that's in our church. I mean, you and your husband have 50 years combined, right? Mm-hmm. Over 50 years. Yeah. But it just seemed, and part of it I think is just I'm willing. In fact, I'm hungry to help serve someone who's fighting that disease.
Well, with keep in mind that you are tied to that disease, and someone who is tied to the disease understands and can. I understand the empathy aspect, but you actually can have true sympathy for that patient.
Sure.
And help them come alongside them because you were there. Being empathetic is different. I've never been there. I understand how they feel, but I don't know how they feel.
But you got to see both sides. You got to see a family member drinking out of control, and then you got to see a family member not only get healthy, but then begin to serve others.
Absolutely.
So you did kind of have a front row seat to the 3-ring circus.
I watched it, but watching it and doing it are two different things. And I think that's where the difference between, like I said, sympathy, where you can come in, Mac, and you can stand alongside and say, I've been there, I understand, and it does get better. Just continue on in your therapy. It does get better. Or you can be empathetic and say, I've never been there. I know how you feel. Right. I think I know how you feel, but I can't relate to you at that level.
Did you ever attend Al-Anon or Alateen or anything like that?
I didn't.
No. How about your dad?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. Well, Tom, I sure appreciate you being here. And I had talked about at the top of the hour, we were going to discuss one of Tom's passions, and that is witnessing to people who are unchurched or confused in their faith. And we ran out of time to do that, so I'm going to give him several opportunities to do it again. and to come back on the program and do that. And hopefully when he does, I'll let you know in advance so you can tune in. You're also always welcome to go to RestoringHopeLive.com, click on archives, and all the programs that we've done over the last couple of years are going to be right there. Also, go to Recovery Mondays, which are where the other shows are listed that we have had here on Monday's show, which is all about recovery. It's all about giving you the insight, the tools, the knowledge, the understanding, and maybe a little bit of the pain of what friends go through when they hit those life's hurts, habits, and hang-ups. For Lila Stafford from Powell CDC, for Tom Urban and Chris, I'm J. Michael McCoy. Thanks for listening. Love this job. Couldn't do it without you. We'll see you tomorrow, live here on RestoringHopeLive.com. Powered by WebcastOneLive.com.
Restore